You're listening to the Mannin line, and as I said earlier on, we are hoping that you will contact us. The telephone number is 66 13 68. You can text to 166177, or you can email to studio@manxradio.com. Catherine Nichol is eagerly awaiting your call on the switch. And with me is Helen Butters, one of the four mums in a boat who sailed across the Atlantic in a rowboat, which was 8 metres by 1.5 metres, which sounds incredible. You said that, Helen, the boat itself, after you've had it built, was virtually unsinkable. Is that right?
Yes, it's designed like a lifeboat. So if all the hatches are shut on the boat and it does capsize, if everything's shut, it should right itself. So it's like a lifeboat. It's designed like a lifeboat.
So you would sail with the hatches shut?
So we would row with the hatches shut, yeah.
Well, yes.
Yeah. So Nikki found it quite difficult because she in the book, if you read the book, she realised that she was very claustrophobic. So she didn't want to shut the hatches, so we had to wait till she was asleep and then shut the hatches because it was very risky not to.
Yeah. Well, when you had the food, all this food, just looking at a picture of the boat and looking at some of the videos of it, doesn't seem much space to store things.
No, but we did. We managed to get 60 days worth
Does
of
that go
food.
underneath
It goes
you,
underneath,
it? Yeah.
in the whole bit. So yeah, it is actually quite spacious to pack things away.
You said that you were doing this, apart from your own personal achievement, for charity.
Yes, we had two charities. Maggie's Cancer Caring Centre was one of our charities, and they're building a Maggie's in Yorkshire as we speak now, literally. And Yorkshire Air Ambulance was another one of our charities.
Right. So the money where did the money come from? Because you had to raise the money to do the thing in the first place.
So it's
I presume there's contributions later.
Yes, it's two things. We had very separate. There was the corporate sponsorship to get us to the start line, and then once we had that, people could either donate straight to the charities, which they did, or they could donate to the corporate sponsorship. And then once we'd finished the boat and all the kit, everything was sold, and then that went to the charities as well.
Right. Air ambulance is interesting, of course, because we have quite a lot of use for air ambulances here, especially TT.
Yes. Yes.
But a different air ambulance service, of course.
Yes.
But yes, now the book, the one that where did I put it? This book here, for the Yorkshire Rose and four mums in a boat. When I touched on this before, it's written in a sort of almost novel style, a narrative style, as opposed to an account of it.
Yes.
Yeah. Who did the writing?
So we all put all our stories together, and then we had one person who then put it all together in one book.
Yeah.
But we wanted it to read like, even though it's true, we wanted it to read like a novel, so it would be different from the other ocean rowing books out there, which are very practically based. So we wanted it to be read by people like us.
Yeah.
And if you look at ocean rowing boats, normally there's a certain type of person would buy them, but we wanted our story to be heard by everybody.
Now, how is it selling?
Well, it sold really well. It was on the Sunday Times bestseller list when it was published, which is brilliant. And it's been published in Germany now, and in the Netherlands, and in America. And it's been optioned as well. So we're hoping to make that it'll be made into a film. So that's very exciting.
And are you going to star in the film?
No, I won't be starring. Well, we're hoping that we might be able to get, like Alfred Hitchcock, we'll turn up somewhere in the film, but we definitely won't be starring in it. But it'll be really exciting to see our story on the big screen.
Now, this obviously must be creating extra revenue.
Yes, it's sort of. It's not life-changing revenue.
This is the revenue for you now, and not the charities.
Yes, it's a revenue for us. We're now doing so. This challenge has basically opened up lots of different avenues. So for me, I found that when I was on the boat, your true self comes out on the boat, and my coaching skills came out on that boat because Nikki was struggling quite bad, missing her family. So my coaching skills came out, and I coached Nikki to the end. So she looked after me when I was sick, and then I looked after her at the end. So I'm now doing a coaching course because I've noticed there's a big gap in people who are doing similar challenges to me, kind of expeditions. They focus very heavily on the physical side, but they don't prepare mentally for what's to come. So I'm now doing pre and post adventure coaching just to get people mentally prepared for what they're going to go through. So that's kind of been something that I would never have thought of doing if I hadn't have done the challenge.
And how do they come in contact with you?
Well, they can basically find me on social media, or they can email me, and they can contact me that way. I've got an Instagram called Butters and Beyond, so people can contact me via that, or on Facebook. But that's just another kind of string to my bow that I would never have thought of doing. So I'm actually coaching for dads who are basically rowing the ocean in November. So I'm getting them mentally prepared.
I see that the appearance, the book has drawn appearances from you at literary festivals and all.
Yes,
now
that's something that I absolutely love. I'd never been involved in literary festivals before. I'd never gone to one. So we've been we've done Cheltenham Literary Festival, which was amazing. We were interviewed by Libby Purvis, who's lovely. We're doing Bath Literary Festival. We're doing we did Melrose Literary Festival in Scotland, and we're doing Boswell Literary Festival soon, and Chipping Norton. So the whole literary festival world is so interesting. And we go there and we talk about our story, and we can sign books. And so, yeah, that's been, again, a life-changing thing that we would never have been involved with.
The sort of things I'm asking you today has been out of sheer curiosity.
Yeah.
After reading your book anyway. But what sort of questions do you get from an audience like that who may not yet have read your book?
Oh, we get all sorts of questions about how we got to the start line, how we go to the toilet.
I'm going to come to that.
How all the kind of the practicalities of rowing an ocean. We get asked lots of interesting questions. The best question I got asked was at a school, and the children were going, "Well, who's going to look after your children?" I just thought no one had ever asked me that before. Whilst I was on the ocean for 3 months, so we get asked lots and lots of different questions.
When you were on the ocean and your 3 colleagues with you, all of you have a couple of children each.
Yes.
Did the pressure of not having the children there, missing the children, did that come to the surface?
Yes, especially for Nikki, as you'll read in the book and watch the documentary. She really missed the children. I think what I did, I developed a coping strategy where I basically turned my emotions off during that boat trip. I turned them off. And I used to ring the children once a week and ring my family once a week. And it got harder and harder and harder as time went on. But the downside of turning your emotions off was when I got to Antigua, and a few kind of months after that, it took quite a while for me to turn my emotions back on, which is why I kind of experienced this adrenaline hangover, which then kind of has pushed me into doing this post and pre-adventure coaching, because this happens quite often with people. They have a big dip when they've done something, and it spurs them on to do something else. So now I can understand why Ranulph Fiennes and other adventurers continue to do one thing after the other, because I met this woman, so I was quite down for quite a long time, and then I met this woman who wanted to show the documentary at a film festival in Scotland. Met her one day. She's an inspirational, amazing woman who sailed across the Atlantic and climbed Everest. And at that point, she just said to me, "I think you need to climb Everest next. I think you need to do that." So I took that as a sign that that's my next thing. And as soon as she said that, I was like, whoosh, I was on this complete high again.
It was dangerous enough doing the sailing.
Yes.
Or rowing.
Yes.
But climbing Everest is even more so.
Yes, it is. So she's basically done this challenge.
The danger's not worrying you?
No, because I just think it's all in the planning. And my aim is to do this in 2021. I don't think anybody I know that a Manx man has climbed Everest, Phil Drowley, which I'd love to meet him because he's done the 7 summits. Love to meet him. I don't think a woman has planted a Manx flag on the top of Everest.
That would be good.
So that would be good. I would be happy to do that. So that basically is my next focus. But it's going to take a lot of planning, a lot of climbing a lot of mountains, and I obviously would need sponsorship to do it. So I would welcome any partners who would be interested in sort of partnering me with this, would be great. So that's my aim, is to basically 2021, I've given myself enough time. I'm on my mountaineering course. I'm climbing Mont Blanc in September, and then I've got various other mountains that I need to do before I go to Everest. But I just think she came to me for a reason, I think, and who would not want to be literally on top of the world, and to have that Manx flag again would be great.
Right through your story about the 4 mums in a boat,
Yes.
you've displayed a form of working together, a form of comradeship, a form of a whole series of related trusts came together.
Yes.
But climbing up a thing like Mont Blanc or Everest or whatever you do, even though maybe there's a team, it's a more solitary thing.
It is. It's very, very different. And my rowing colleagues are not interested in doing Everest because it's not their passion. It's my passion. But yes, it would be a very different thing, and it would be weird me being on my own. There's a group of rowers. There's real stories actually in people who row across oceans, because there's not many of us. I think there's only just over 100 women have ever rowed an ocean, and about 500 men have ever rowed an ocean. But there's a real story, I think, in what happens next. And there's a group of rowers who are all men actually, who are interested in now climbing Everest. So it would be great to kind of be in a team with them, but I'd probably be the only woman.
No, the first of our texts and emails are in, and it's from James, who says, really enjoyed following your adventures across the Atlantic. The book chronicling their adventures is a great read, and the video is also a great watch.
Yes.
So then, that's a good point to bring in about the video, because I found it on YouTube.
Yes.
It
was National Geographic Channel commissioned a documentary of our journey, and it's about the North Sea trip and it's about the Atlantic trip. So we couldn't share the documentary until January this year because it was owned by National Geographic. So it was on their People channel in Australia and Asia and all around the world, but not here. So in January, when we were able to show it, you can watch the documentary via our website, yorkshirerows.com. You can click on there. There's loads of information about how we can, sort of our speaking stuff that we do now. We do inspirational storytelling. And you can click on there to watch the documentary. It's about 45 minutes long.
Yes.
But the feedback we get is it makes people cry, it makes people laugh, and hopefully it'll inspire people to go and find their own oceans. Some
of it looked as if it was done with small automatic cameras on the boat.
Yes, so we basically filmed a lot of it with GoPros on the boat. So a lot of the footage is real life footage, obviously, that we've shot ourselves. And then the documentary maker basically then put all the other bits of the
So some of these shots of you
it.
in a empty, wide open sea wasn't necessarily in the middle of the Atlantic. It could be a long way to go for a plane or a helicopter.
Yes, I know. And we had GoPros on the outside of the boat, which we could turn on from the inside. So in the hurricane, we could take footage of the hurricane from inside
and the lightning.
Our coffins and the lightning and things. So yeah, it's a great watch. If you've not watched it, you can watch it now.
I have. The first thing I did when I knew you were coming on the programme, actually, before I looked at your book. Anyway, talking about the book, Pat has just sent us a message to say, loved the book, well done, very inspirational.
Oh, good.
So it's out and about here
well,
already.
Well, do you know, the best bit about the book for me and about doing this challenge is the byproduct of what we did. We didn't plan, we didn't know would happen, is all the people who contact us to tell us what they've now done as a result of being inspired by us, which we just didn't expect. So for me, that's been the best bit about doing this challenge is hearing other people's adventures or whatever. It could be learning a new skill, it could be learning an instrument, it could be anything. So that to me has been the best bit, and that's what's spurring me on now to do something else.
My father used to have a more simple phrase than that. It wasn't probably entirely right, but he used to say, well, if you think you can, you probably can. So that was the same sort of thing.
But we have a hashtag, What's Your Ocean? And we basically say to people, not everybody wants to do what we did, and we can completely understand that, but what's your ocean?
Right, now Rusty's dad, whoever Rusty's dad, hello, Rusty's dad, wants to know what the name of the book. It's called Four Mums in a Boat.
Yes.
And it's available, well, where is it available?
It's in Watterstones here on the island. Right here on the island, and it's on Amazon. You can buy it on Amazon, and you can buy it if he's on the Isle of Man. You can buy it in Watterstones in Douglas.
Probably Lexington and the others will have it too.
I'd be happy to sign it when I'm next here. If anybody wants to buy books, I'm happy to sign them.
It was Terence who arranged our meeting, who gave me this book. I noticed you've signed mine. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Right, so that's it. Four Mums in a Boat is the name, Rusty, of the book. Did your guest find it spiritual, which is a point I was going to come to with. Did your guest find it spiritual on this trip, with the guard angel looking after her? Well, there is mentions of angels.
Yes, well, I am into angels, and I look for signs all the time. So that's why mountains is my next thing, because I actually got a climbing rope delivered to me in the post that nobody had ordered, and we didn't know where it had come from. So for me, that was a sign to do my next thing. So yes, what made me strong on that boat is I do have angel card readings and all of that. I have done for a number of years, and I do find it really comforting.
Could you explain that?
It's a positive thing. It's kind of like a tarot card reading, but it's very positive. So it basically, it's a bit like, well, my angel reader who I go and see saw me doing something with women and raising money for charity way before this actually happened and was even thought of. So so I used to go see her, and she used to say to me, this is going to be the hardest thing you'll ever do. It's going to be really tough, but you will get to the other side. And I really believed that. And I think with the four of us, I was the quirky one. I was the one that looked for feathers, and I was all of that. But when we were on that boat, and I think Francis, one night, we were in a bad storm. Everything had broke. Everything had gone wrong. And I remember Francis saying, we're going to die tonight. We're not going to get to we're just not going to get there. And I just said, Francis, I know we're going to get there. So actually, all of that quirky stuff actually made me really strong. And I was kind of the strongest positive person on that boat throughout. And I think it's because of all of that stuff. So I'm a big believer in, if it makes you happy and you're positive, then just do it because it really helped me.
There's a section in the book where you're lecturing your colleagues and saying no one is allowed to cry.
No, well, we'd watched, Ben Fogle and James Cracknell had rowed the ocean a couple of years before, and we'd watched their documentary whilst we were in La Gomera, and they'd basically cried the whole way across. So I was determined that I was not going to cry, and that was one of my things. But to answer the question, we all did have very spiritual experiences on that boat. Being on an ocean, it was like, I found the Atlantic Ocean like a sixth character. The boat was number 5 and the Atlantic was number 6. It was very much like a living thing. And looking at the stars, looking at the moon, being out there at night time was very spiritual. And I did feel like my dad, who's no longer with us, he was definitely with me on that boat. And I could feel like somebody behind me, and I kept kind of looking around, and he definitely helped me, I think, when I was struggling and thinking, can I go on? This is really tough. I think he definitely was there with me on that boat. So we all had spiritual experiences, I think. Probably not Frances, because she's not really into all of that stuff, but me and Jeanette definitely did.
Spiritual or religious?
I would say spiritual. I would say spiritual.
I have talked to one or two people who went into space,
Yeah.
and some of them left Earth with a fairly atheist point of view and came back with a difference.
Yes. Yeah, you mentioned
It
that.
was the experience
You
that
mentioned
they
about
took.
Tim Peake, and Tim Peake had actually got shot off into space the same day we were rowing across the ocean, because BBC Breakfast were following both of us, and I did feel very close to space because we were so far away from land, and I used to think about Tim Peake, and then he actually tweeted us from space. So that's like one of my highlights.
What did the sky look like so far? No lights, nothing, just in the darkness.
It was just amazing. I've never experienced anything like it. And as I said, the moon was like our friend because it lit everything up so we could see. But it was an amazing experience, and I just feel really lucky to have had that opportunity.
We're just going to take a break now. And before we go, Barry Stevens is one of our regulars who listens to us in Cheltenham. But he's having some trouble just lately in receiving us. I'm sorry, Barry. I hope we're coming through just at the moment. You've asked us to have a look at something. I'll pass the message on. Thank you. Time for a break. Back to the Mannin line. With me in the studio today is Helen Butters. She's one of the 4 mums in a boat. That is the 4 women who rowed across the Atlantic in a very small boat, and got there indeed. And it's all about their challenge and the things they experienced, and indeed the effects on them afterwards. That's interesting to talk to you, Helen. It's quite clear from the way it keeps coming over and what you're saying. It has had some effect on you.
Definitely.
Can you analyse that effect? Do you know what it is?
Yeah, so as I said, we planned this expedition really well to arrive in Antigua. What we didn't plan for was how we would all feel when we'd actually finished. And I think when you're on an ocean and when you're doing something extreme for a long time, your mind goes, all I can describe it as, you're on high alert all the time. And then when you get onto safe land and your brain sees safety, it crashes. And that's what I think we all experienced that, but I probably experienced it the worst because I think I turned my emotions off to deal with not being with my family. So I turned subconsciously I did that, which was great for me on the boat because I coped well on the boat. But when I came back, I've probably suffered the most. And it took me a good 18 months to feel happy again.
Must have made a difference to your family too, having their mum or wife, whichever it is, thousands of miles out in the most hostile of seas.
Yes.
Must have had in itself an effect on them.
Yes, well they could follow the row because there was a yellow brick tracker, so they could check in and they knew we were okay all the time. There was a boat of 4 women who did capsize and had to be rescued, and I remember Francis's husband was walking the dog and a man came up to him and went, "I'm really sorry to hear about your wife," because they'd seen on the newsstands these 4 women had to be rescued. They all presumed it was us, and in fact it wasn't us at all. So but the good thing about the races is that you can track us all the time, so people would know that we were okay.
Right, now I've got another email here, or text email I think. Now their record, this is you, has been beaten. Do you fancy attempting to reclaim it?
It hasn't been beaten actually.
Right.
Our world record is the oldest women to row any ocean. And this year's race there was 3 women who were older than us, but because there were only 3 of them in the boat, their combined ages aren't as old as our 4 combined ages. So Diane, who was in this year's race, she's now the oldest woman to row an ocean, but we're still the oldest women to row any ocean. So Atlantic Ladies were a group of 4, and if they had still been a group of 4, they would have taken our world record off us, which would have been great because we inspired them to do it. So
now Val has sent us an email here. She says she's enjoying listening to you, Helen, but I have to tell you that you've missed a great by not eating the flying fish. They're fiddly but tasty.
yes. So I hear.
And we ate them when we sailed across the Atlantic, but that was in a 52-foot boat. But we did have a cooker.
Well, that sounds great. Well, I've heard they are very tasty. So I'll definitely, if I ever get in a situation whereby I'm on a boat again, I will take your recommendation and I will cook them.
One of the things it's saying when people go up in space and women have to ask them what do they do with their rubbish and so on.
Yeah.
So as far as you're concerned, what did you do with your rubbish?
We had to, obviously we couldn't throw anything, we wouldn't want to throw anything overboard. There's obviously a huge issue with plastics in the ocean. So part of the race rules is all your rubbish you have to stow away. So when we got to Antigua, the scrutiny officer actually gets on your boat and looks through all your rubbish, which isn't the nicest of jobs because you can imagine the smell.
Yeah.
But yeah, we stow all our rubbish away.
And that includes even things like wet wipes.
Yes, it's disgusting. Yes.
Okay.
All our wet wipes.
Yes. Well, you did talk about, all of you, about your clothes in a mess. I read in the book that you almost had your clothes caked solid because you were sick all over it a few times.
Yeah,
you know.
we were only allowed to take a couple of pairs of shorts and a couple of t-shirts.
And knickers?
Well, we actually rode naked a lot of the time. Because you're basically just getting bashed with water the whole time, and to try and use the bucket when you're being tossed around is difficult. So pulling shorts down just makes life harder, and because nobody can see you, we
Except the other three.
we rode except the other three, we rode naked a lot of the time.
Right. You must have got used to that. But what about the weather? I asked you about sunburn earlier on.
Yeah.
I don't know what the weather's like in the Atlantic in December, but is the sun?
One of the challenges is the heat. You're not allowed to have a cover over your boat, so you've got to row in the heat of the sun.
Why is that? In case it's used as a sail or something?
Yes. So you're out in the elements all the time. So we had things like squalls. So we could see a squall coming. So that would be, so we'd see it coming, we'd start singing to get through the squall, which is like a mini storm, and then it dries you off. So at night time, when it got dark, it did get very cold actually. So we used to wear our wet weather gear at night time and a t-shirt during the day. But one of the challenges is the heat. It's very hot during the day.
It must be even hotter in your little cabin then.
But yes, very hot, and you've got to keep everything shut because of the capsize risk.
Now, these are personal things. We talked about other risks and so on. But I was reading in the book that when you got to Antigua, you thought you were going to have to shave your hair off.
Yeah, so this is where I should have listened to Henry, because we didn't wash our hair at all. And I put my hair in a bobble, in a high ponytail, and put like a cover thing over the top of it. And I could cope with sharks. We saw sharks. I could cope with sharks, 40-foot waves, hurricanes, seasickness. What I couldn't cope with was greasy hair. So I didn't touch my hair. I couldn't touch it. I couldn't brush it. I couldn't do anything. I got to Antigua and it was the biggest dreadlock you could ever imagine. And I was hoping when I got in the shower for the first time in 67 days, my hair would all just be fine. No, it was a hard mess. And I am a big believer that everything happens for a reason. And I went to the hairdressers and I was sitting next to an American woman who said, I'm going to sort your hair. I didn't know her. And I thought to myself, what am I going to do? She said, I'll sort your hair out. And between her and 3 people, they spent 9 hours over 3 days unpicking hair by hair this massive dreadlock mess. And she saved my hair. So every time I'm in the hairdressers now, I take a picture of myself, send it to Jessica, who's she works on a super yacht.
You're still in contact
I'm
with her?
still
then?
in contact with her. She's in the book. I've sent her a book. And I got to know Jessica really well over those 9 hours. So actually, I'm pleased that my hair was a complete mess, because I would never have met Jessica.
It seems we talk about all these other things, and I know this comes down to very basics as we're going towards the end of the programme, but you've referred 3 or 4 times to going to the loo in the thing.
Yeah.
Now, there's obviously no flush toilet or privacy there.
No.
So how did you go about that? You said you tried different methods.
We did try different methods, and the best method was a bucket, a camping bucket, a camping toilet with a rim, with a proper rim on.
Right.
And that was bungeed to the side of the boat. So somebody would be rowing right next to the person who's on the toilet bucket. And you basically, and eating expedition food, your poos are quite big. So it was a challenge. So basically, that was our toilet. That's what we did. And then we would just throw over the side, clean it. We'd have rubber gloves, clean the bucket. And that was our toilet for 67 days. So a luxury of being in that hotel room with a toilet that didn't move was heaven.
Well, you really got to know each other.
We did get to know each other.
In more ways than one.
We did. Yeah. We did.
Well, somebody said to you, I think, that you will hate each other one day and love each other the next.
Yes.
Is that the case?
It was. The emotions were all over the place on that boat. But we did get off that boat as strong friends, and we kind of feel now that we're more like sisters than friends, and we'll always have that bond.
Now, I find it unusual that we have all this footage. Did you do any live broadcasts from the boat back to the BBC?
No, we didn't. No? It's quite difficult to do that and very expensive. So even talking on the satellite phone was very expensive.
I was thinking the BBC, they would obviously pick up the bill, but yes.
Yeah, but I think we kind of paid for it as well, I think. But yeah, we did talk to the BBC a lot all the way across, but we didn't send them any kind of photographic or film footage.
So where did we get the shot of you half dressed?
Yes, so on BBC Breakfast, we gave them some of our private footage, and they put together this tiny little film. So as soon as we came back from the row, we were on the red sofa. They showed the footage that someone had changed the night before. Nobody had realised that my nether regions were on show for about a couple of seconds. When we came off the red sofa, the producers were all running around panicking because obviously someone had noticed that my nether regions were on show on BBC Breakfast at 6:30 in the morning. I mean, I was fine with it because everybody knew we rode naked, and for me, it's just it's a body part. But I think some people may have not appreciated seeing that when they were having their cornflakes. But we raised a lot of money for charity that day. But the funny thing was that I was wearing a blue t-shirt. I cut the sleeves off. It looked awful. And I remember saying on the boat, well, no one is ever going to see this t-shirt. And then I was in the Sun newspaper with the t-shirt on, obviously. So everybody saw me in that blue t-shirt.
Well, by the sound of it, sensitivity and everything else disappears out the door.
Yes,
no room to be self-conscious, is there?
But lots of people were great over that. I mean, the majority of comments were, we should be focusing on what they've achieved, not on that picture.
When you said the boat is sold,
yes.
Where did it go?
Sorry?
Where did it go?
It went, well, we were very lucky to sell it. It went to Ralph, who's an ocean rower. She's already broken another 3 records. She's taken 4 men across the Atlantic 3 times.
In it.
Yeah. And so he bought the boat from us, which is brilliant because we can still track her, and he's kept the name. So she's still out there doing her thing.
Well, we're right at the end of our programme, Helen. So anybody listening to you today, and I'm sure there are a few who've been following your tale quite diligently today, what would you say to them? If you could give somebody a message at the end of all this, what would you think it might be? Well,
I would say to anybody, if 4 working mums who had no time, no money, can row across the Atlantic Ocean, anybody can do anything. So anything is possible. But the key is you've just got to want to do it. And that's really what I'd like to say. And I'd be really interested to hear from anybody what their ocean is. Really interested.
And how can they contact you?
They can contact me. I'm on Instagram, as I said, called Butters and Beyond. They can contact us at Yorkshire Rose via our website, our email. They can contact us there. Yorkshire Rose, we're on Twitter. Anything really. Really happy to hear from anybody.
Right. Well, Helen Butters, thank you for being our guest both on Sunday Opinion and on the Mannin line today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming along. Now, there we are, right at the end of the programme. If you would like to see the video that we talked about, it's about 45 minutes, and Helen's just told you if you go to their website. What was your website again?
YorkshireRose.com.
Right. If you go to that, you'll find it on there.
ROWS.
Yes, ROWS. Yes, let's play on words.
Yeah.
Yes, you'll find it there. Catherine Nichol was on the switch today, and we must thank Terence MacDonald for arranging for these programmes to happen. I'm Roger Watterson, and Catherine and I look forward to your company next week. Until then, goodbye.